All right, guys, let me read you a quote here. This is from the Big Bear. Daniel Cormier himself, there have been a number of upsets in mixed martial arts. In my opinion, if Volkanovski wins this fight, it is the biggest. It's bigger than anything we've seen because, and I'm telling you, when you get into the details of this matchup, it seems a very hard match for Volkanovski to win because his skill set is almost catered for a guy like Makhachev because of Makhachev's ability to stand and also because of his size. Now, there ain't a damn sentence in there that I agree with. I mean, like he didn't get one of these things right. Daniel is teammates, and I believe even a mentor to Islam. So I think that's great. I think what Daniel is really personalizing this, and he's saying, man, I just know how good this guy is. And if somebody could bump up from a different division and take him out, man, I've never seen anything like it. I think that is where this came from. But I'm going to take it a little bit more literal. Because when I tell you there's not a sentence here that is true, that is literal. Let's break this thing down. There has been a number of upsets in mixed martial arts. Okay, now if you were to make a statement like that, you would then say what the upsets were. You would say, like the night that Matt Serra beat George St. Pierre. You would talk about the night of 8-1 spread when Holly Holm kicked Ronda Rousey in the mouth and took her belt away. You would talk about an 8-1 spread, which I believe is actually the biggest upset ever, and people just forget that it happened because it wasn't an overly entertaining fight, but TJ Dillashaw walked right over Renan Barão. I believe, off of my head here, that is officially the biggest upset ever. I don't think we've had one where the odds makers were bigger, but then you could go to a more recent example that was right there. It was 6, it was 5, it was 6, and just happened, which would be Juliana Pena over Amanda Nunes. Normally you would state what those were, but we're going to move on here. In my opinion, says the Big Bear, if Volkanovski wins this fight, it is the biggest. It's bigger than anything we've seen because, and I'm telling you, when you get into the details of this matchup, it seems a very hard match for Volkanovski to win because the skill set is almost catered for a guy like Makhachev because of Makhachev's ability to stand and also his size. That's interesting. Daniel, a 2-time Olympic wrestler, did not talk about the wrestling ability by Makhachev. He talked about Makhachev's ability to stand and also his size. These guys weigh the same thing. I mean, I can't let that go, but Daniel believes that too. Daniel does not believe there's a difference between a 45-pounder and a 55-pounder. He didn't talk about his ability to get on top, right? That's the only time size matters, just so you understand why I'm making a fuss about that. The only time size matters is when you're grappling. It doesn't matter when you're standing. And I don't know what body of work we've ever seen by Makhachev to lead us to believe that he can deal with Volkanovski. Now, we've been told it, and we're told that it's there. But to have an opponent that is tailor-made to deal with a guy who's got an incredibly long reach, a great jab, never gets tired, throws a lot at the wall. Oh, and by the way, in 16 fights with some of the hardest opponents ever, considering a lot of them were world championships, whether he was pursuing it or he was bringing it with him, none of them have ever bested him there. It'd be very different if Daniel was to say, man, this guy, he's just going to take him down. He's too big for him. He's going to get on top. He's going to change him. He's one of the best wrestlers from the Caucasus region versus a dude that played rugby in New Zealand. This isn't rocket science, guys. I mean, that would be very different. I wouldn't be able to disagree with it. I wouldn't be able to argue with any of it. I'm just sharing for you within the paragraph. There wasn't a sentence there that is factually correct. Not one. Not even the size of Islam. The only time that Islam has weighed more than Volkanovski is the last time Islam fought compared to the last time Volkanovski fought. The last time they both weighed in happened to be 15 minutes apart. They weighed the exact same thing, 155.0. There is no size on Makhachev. The highest Makhachev's ever gotten reportedly is 182 pounds. I wouldn't actually know because I'm not a dork. I wouldn't be interested in it. I just happen to know with Volkanovski because it was a big part of his story. He used to play rugby at 96 kilograms, which translates into 211 pounds. These guys aren't even close to the same size. Volk is much bigger. It's just a really interesting statement. Like if you're Volkanovski and you think the Big Bear is telling the truth and you go, wait a minute. My biggest concern is this guy's going to stand and trade with me. It's punches and kicks and elbows and knees. I mean, Jiminy, I got this thing locked up. The only thing I'm worried about is him taking me down and my inability to deal with it from there. My inability to get back up to my feet. It was a very peculiar statement, not to mention, if you talk about upsets, then you're talking about odds, specifically. And this wouldn't be that. I do like the concept that Daniel and I are disagreeing. I do like that. I like it because I believe there's going to be a lot more of this before this fight goes off. And this fight is next month. I mean, it felt like it was forever away. It is now next month. And I'm not sure that the UFC, the night they got this fight, were fully aware of what they were getting. Now, I could turn out to be wrong. Right? This isn't like upsets. Or I should argue this is just like upsets. It's reflected by a number. So when this business ends, it either does a great number or Chael's wrong. I'm just predicting I'm right because I think there's going to be a lot more talk just like this. We're not going to need Islam and we're not going to need Volk. And that's good because we're not going to get Islam and we're not going to get Volk. But I think that you will have people that follow this sport very closely, such as is happening right now, and I think we're going to create a lot of debate on this topic. I'm not picking, at this juncture at least, I am not picking Volk to be Makhachev. I'm speaking back to the narrative that you couldn't call it a huge upset when it started at 3-1 at DraftKings and it's even closed. It's 2-8-1 if you want to know exactly right now, but that's getting closer. You got Renan Barão losing all 5 rounds to TJ Dillashaw, who wasn't even supposed to have the shot. If you even remember how that fight came around, he wasn't even supposed to be in that spot. Runs over him as an 8-1 favorite. You don't then get to argue and say a 2-8-1 favorite is bigger than an 8-1 favorite. I mean, you just don't get to do that. I don't get to tell you what a huge fight this is. The number comes in. A whole bunch of you either watched it or you didn't. I don't get to tell you. In my opinion, it was one of the biggest fights. For me, it was one of the biggest fights. One of the one I was most excited. There's definitions. There's words. There's things that have to happen here. But this was a very fascinating take. Now, who's Daniel talking to right now? Is he supporting his guy? Maybe. Is he talking to the bettors out there that aren't completely convinced? Maybe. Or is he scolding the rankings room, who every Tuesday morning by 9 a.m. releases a list? They've got Volk number 1, and they got Islam number 5 or number 6. But I think that you understand my point. I mean, who here is wrong? Somebody's wrong. If Islam can beat Volk and people that are watching and an announcer and a former world champion and the coach of the guy says he absolutely can, to the point that would be the biggest shock in the history of the sport for me, then I guess you're telling the rankings room, who has them separated by 5 with Volk on top, that they're wrong. I'm into that. But let's just call it out. Let's say what it is. Why would we not do that? And moreover, if you're telling me that Islam's going to win and he's going to do it on his feet, I mean, there's a whole jackpot full of money to be made here. It's not just for the 1% club. You can all get in on that. If you're telling me it's not going to be wrestling based and that that's going to be the differential, come out and say it. Say your piece. Say anything you want. But don't tell me it's the biggest spread we've seen. That's mathematical and it's not true. And don't tell me that these guys are separated in weight. 145 and 155 is the same damn thing.